It's time for the Car Doctor on AM 950 WROL. Got a car question? Call us at 617-770-3030. That's 617-770-3030. Now, here's the Car Doctor, John Paul, on AM 950 WROL, the spirit of Boston.
And good Saturday morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on AM 950 WROL, the spirit of Boston. My name's John Paul, the Car Doctor, here to help you with your car problems on this Saturday morning. And it looks like it's going to be a very nice Saturday morning in the Boston area. So hopefully all things are going good for you today. You know, it might be a good day to go out and buy a car. But, you know, sometimes buying a car, well, here's the problem. Here's what I see the problem with buying a car. Car salesmen sell a lot more cars than you as an individual buy, so they're better at selling than you are at buying. And with us on the phone is Lisa Copeland. Lisa Copeland's been in the world of car sales for a long time. Good morning, Lisa, and welcome to the Car Doctor program here in Boston.
Well, hello, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, sure. Give our listeners a little idea about you, kind of a thumbnail sketch of who you are and what you've been doing for the past bunch of years.
Well, my name's Lisa Copeland. I'm a former dealer principal, which means automotive dealer, here in Austin, Texas. And I actually relaunched the Fiat brand back to the U.S. So some days that was good and some days that was tough. And I sold my store 3 years ago and started my company, Cars Her Way, excuse me, where we work with automotive dealers to help them accelerate the consumer experience, not only for women, but for all consumers.
Well, it's really true. Dennis, my producer, was out kind of shopping around a couple weeks ago, and he saw a great lease deal. And when he got there, come to find out it was complete nonsense. The dealer experience was not very good. I was talking to someone the other day who priced out a car through TrueCar. They got to the dealership, and the dealer said, "Oh no, that price is only if you finance through us." The person called TrueCar and said that's not in their agreement. There is no small print in our agreement with them that it requires dealer financing. So there still is a fair amount of shenanigans that go on in the car sales business, isn't there?
There is, and it's too bad, and I don't understand it. You know, one of the things that we really prided ourselves on when I had my dealership was the consumer experience, and you know, and doing what we say we're going to do. And I always told my salespeople, if our customer has a problem, we have a problem. So either you fix it or I'm going to write a check. Right?
It really is about kind of under-promising and over-delivering, isn't it? Really just make the experience good. You know, somebody comes in and when they leave, they're like, wow, that was a lot better than I expected it was going to be.
Yeah, I agree, because I'll tell you what, the consumer expectations are so low when they go into a car dealership because of the stories like you just told me, and you and I both know there's millions of those stories everywhere, right? And so their expectations are already so low. So what kills me is when I hear these stories, and I'm like, the expectations were already on the ground, and you still screwed it up.
Yeah, you're right. You would think if you went in with low expectations, it would give you a little bit of a bar to shoot a little bit higher. But you're absolutely right. And sometimes, you know, when you go in and you go shopping, there are it's kind of a funny. Well, I guess it's a little bit of a funny business too, because where else do you go that you can know more about what the person's selling and how much they paid for it? At a car dealership than any place else. If you go in to buy a couch, you don't know what the furniture store paid for it, and you don't really know that much about it. But there is so much information online and so much pricing information online now. You know, in a lot of cases, more than what the salesperson knows, which you would think would put you as a customer at an advantage, but that's not really the case, is it?
No, you're 100% correct. And you're right. And so, you know, and that's what I tell consumers, you know, be a good consumer and do your homework first. You know, don't just walk into the dealership cold. You know, kind of try to identify, number one, what car it is you're looking for. You know, try to find out what the base price is, to your point, that's totally available on the internet. You know, go to vendors like, excuse me, True Trade or Cars.com or KBB, any of them, and at least get a base number on your trade-in. So the more armed you are as a consumer. And then, of course, you want to check out the dealership themselves. You want to look at the ratings, on Google or Yelp, and you want to see what other people are saying about them. So if you go to a place that's got decent ratings and you've done your homework, you can hopefully lift that experience a little bit off the floor.
What's your feeling between giant mega dealers and kind of mom and pop dealerships? Can they both be good? Do you prefer one over the other?
Yeah, you have good questions this morning. The mega dealers, I think they're fine. They're very corporate typically, so they usually have pretty tight policies and procedures, but they're still in the people game. So if that salesperson has an off day or the manager just doesn't feel like, he or she want to do their job that day, you're still going to have a bad experience. I was what I considered a mom or pop dealership. I only sold about 150 to 200 cars a month. And because of that, I always felt like I had to work harder than my competitor, that we had to know more, I had to have better pricing. And so I have a personal preference to the smaller dealerships. I think it's a little easier to get to the owner, like myself, or the general manager, because they are typically on site every single day.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. When someone's out car shopping, is there sort of the thought of and it sounds a little corny, but I always say buy with your head, not with your heart. Is it a problem when people fall in love with their cars or the cars they want to purchase?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. The time to fall in love with the car is after you've purchased it. And if you're having those feelings, the last thing you want to do during the pre-negotiations or during the test drive is let anybody think that you can't live without that car. Because I promise you, the price just went up. It just went up. They and it's emotional intelligence, right?
Yep.
And so the lower your emotional intelligence is, the higher your emotions are, the lower your emotional intelligence. And it's critical for consumers nowadays. I mean, as long as negotiations stay in the car deal, there's always going to be that poker game, that poker face. Mm-hmm. And you've got to go in and be prepared to play the game.
Yeah, you really do. And I was talking to an old-timer, and by old-timer I mean I think he's in his late 80s, and he loves to shop for cars, and he shops for people. And his negotiating tactic is he does his research ahead of time. He writes down what he wants to pay for the car on a piece of paper, and during the sort of sales talk, he goes over and he says, look, I have a number. I have it written down on this piece of paper, and he puts it in the salesperson's pocket, and he says to him, you come up with your best price, and if your best price is somewhere near what I'm going to do, I'm going to add an extra $100 just for you. And he says it's never failed that the salesperson comes back with a better price than he wrote down on the piece of paper.
Well, I think that's a brilliant strategy.
I've
been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of an interesting way to go. What kind of when you walk into a dealership and the salesperson, let's face it, their job is to sort of size you up as you walk in the door. Are there some things that you should be a little bit questions you should be a little nervous about, even to the fact where they might say to you, "Oh, can we just photocopy your driver's license before you go for a test drive?"
Well, so a couple things. Yes, they absolutely do prejudge you before you walk in the door, and I write about in my book. Go in there go in looking like you're ready to do business. Mm-hmm. I hate to say that, but that's a fact. And as it comes to the driver's license, driver's license and insurance is something that the dealer needs to have prior to a test drive, because obviously they're sending you out in a $20, $30, $40, $50, $100,000 piece of machinery. And so they need to do their due diligence. So that piece I'm totally fine with. But if they ask you things like, a woman comes in by herself, "Oh, did you bring your husband with you?" I'm telling you, I would turn around and walk out of that store. Send me over the edge.
Yeah, and what's the number? What is it? The percentage of women who buy cars or influence the decision is huge, right?
It is. So the actual numbers are women influence 85% of all household purchases. So that would be healthcare, education, car buying, house buying, whatever it may be. But because, but she purchases 52% of all cars in the U.S. and still is treated like a, second-class citizen when she hits the dealership.
And your book, Car Buying Her Way, kind of helps through some of that and kind of takes away a little bit of the mystery about that. How about during the negotiation process? I have a car I want to trade in. It's a few years old. Like you said, look up some of the trade-in information. Should that be handled separately? Should I go in and negotiate the price, then negotiate the trade-in? Should I negotiate the trade-in first? What's the best thing you can do?
Yeah, so, prior to going to the dealership, I tell people never go into the dealership cold. Never go in just saying, I'm going to go car shopping today. I wish we could do that, but it just, it doesn't work out well for the consumers. So prior to going to the dealership, I have a partnership. You mentioned TrueCar earlier, and TrueCar is a strategic partner of ours with TrueTrade.com. I think they're fantastic. All you have to do is enter your license plate number and the mileage, and they're going to give you at least a baseline number for your trade-in. That already is power because, and again, there's going to be some things for wear and tear or if you didn't properly explain the car, but at least gives you some knowledge. But never, ever, and then at that point, you have that number. You've already been on the internet kind of perusing what you're looking for the car you're looking for. I will tell you, I believe that the internet prices are the lowest typically that the dealer offers. And here's another buyer beware. There will be so many times that you see one price at the dealership and one price on the internet, and so many people still do not shop on the internet. So salespeople start customers at window sticker down in negotiations because they're assuming because they came in first that they didn't shop on the internet. And so anyways, internet first, find that lowest price, shop your trade-in first, walk in with both of those. I think it's a good idea to call your bank or your credit union, find out what the going interest rate is on that year of vehicle. A used car is going to be more expensive than a new car on interest rate. Find out what your insurance is, and you walk in there and you're ready to do business.
And how about credit ratings? Is it a good idea to know what your credit rating is, to know kind of put that in the negotiation process?
Yeah, absolutely, because interest rates are tiered. But I'll tell you, this is an interesting piece that we did in our research. Credit unions don't tend to tier interest rates to credit scores as much as banking institutions. So the dealers fall under a tiering system. So, for example, if you have a 700 credit score, you can get 2.9% today on a non-subvented rate on a new car. But if you've got a 620 credit score, that's 4.9. And that is not the dealer trying to rip you off. That is what they're under. So if you've got a local credit union or, if you're a teacher or police officer or something and you've got a federal credit union or a county, state that you belong to, you're going to get a better deal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I last year bought a new car and I hadn't done that in a long time. And a couple of things you point out kind of came up in it. First off, I went in and I had an older car I was going to go trade in, and I had really not that much interest to trade it in. I thought I'd just sell it privately, and they offered me a ridiculously low price on a trade-in, and they said to me, well, that's what it's worth. And while they were gone, when they came back, I said, well, it's interesting, you offered me whatever it was, $1,000 for the car. I said, but one of your dealerships has exactly the same car for $7,000 on the lot today. So why is my car worth so much less when they're literally the same car, but my car's actually got a little bit lower mileage? So again, doing that research ahead of time is very helpful. But as I got talking to the dealer where I ended up buying the car from, it was pretty obvious they make all their money in all the extra stuff, the financing, the wheel and tire and key insurance, gap insurance in case you get what the value of the car is versus what you owe on it. Are those things to be careful about, or make sure that if you are interested in those, see where they kind of fit into your whole negotiation strategy as well as maybe what you're willing to pay?
No, you're absolutely correct. So there is more money made in the finance department, almost double to triple on that back end, what we call back end, than there was ever made on the front end of the car, meaning the profit from from the profit from what the dealer pays for the car and what you pay for the car. And here's a little tidbit. Remember when I told you to go out to the credit union or whatever? There's a lot of people that sell extended warranties. I personally have a affinity for the manufacturer's warranty. I don't like third-party warranties. And so I am willing to pay more money, personally, as a consumer, for a factory, a Nissan or a Toyota or whatever warranty of the car I'm driving, than I am for the dealer's aftermarket warranty. But the warranty is absolutely negotiable. It is negotiable. The key fob, the paint, everything that you just brought up, when you're in that finance office and you want that stuff and you say, you know what, I think that $3,000 is too much for an extended warranty. If you could do it for $2,500, because typically I will let y'all know that there's about $1,000 markup in profit on that extended warranty to the dealer. So, what they're offering you. So, ask them for a $500 discount, and you'll probably get it.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I will say the one thing that sort of bothers me more than anything else, at least here in the New England area, is dealer documentation fees. And now we're seeing some of these fees closing in on $800.
That is crazy. In Texas, we have a law about it, and so because it is pure profit to the dealer.
Yeah.
And in Texas, it's only like $190, which I'm okay with, because there is quite a bit of work on getting the car registered and filed and plates picked up and all that stuff. So I'm actually okay with it about under $200.
Right.
But it's a federal law that you cannot negotiate that doc fee. You can ask for a discount somewhere else to kind of, take care of it in your mind when it comes to the bottom line. But they cannot charge it to you and not charge it to someone else. I mean, the dealer could be shut down over it. It's that serious.
Yeah, it becomes discriminatory sales practice or something like that, right?
Predatory, discriminatory. You got it.
Yep. So it sounds like, for a while it sounded like, and Saturn was the one who sort of started it. The one price car dealership. You walk in, there's no negotiation. You buy the car. They give you a cupcake afterwards and a certificate for a free car wash. But that wasn't really, the one price dealers aren't always such a good deal, are they?
No, I'm really against it. I'm against it until every dealer goes to it. And and I look at people like Carvana and CarMax, and I write about them in my book, and I say, the brilliance behind both of those companies is that they are non-automotive people that started them, and they figured out what the problem was in the car buying cog, and they solved it. Is that people hate to buy cars. Carvana's commercials were, car buying doesn't have to suck.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of commercial is that? But it is. And so, therefore, they take advantage of in my opinion, they take advantage of the consumer that doesn't want to negotiate. And I used to tell people, bring in your CarMax deal for a used car. I'll beat it by $1,000, and I could still make money at that.
Yeah. No.
And women consumers especially, they don't like friction. Right? And so, they don't like to negotiate. They don't like friction. They just, as women, we're not really confrontational. Maybe it's because we don't have as much testosterone as men. We don't fight. We don't get into bar fight like guys and all of the above. And so, 80-20 rule, but 80% of the consumers they don't like it. So they're like, fine. I want the car. I'll just pay it. And you're leaving so much money on the table. So I'm not a fan of one price. I feel like the consumer's paying way too much money.
Well, you touched on Carvana and their whole sales practice, and Carvana is one of those companies that leads you to believe that that eventually over time people are going to think of buying a car as really no different than buying a refrigerator. It's just an appliance. I tend to disagree with that. I think people still fall in love with their cars. They spend more time in their cars a lot of times than they do in their bed. And I think there is a certain relationship that people have with their cars, and the Carvana thing makes it sound like, I'm gonna take this $20,000 gold coin. I'm going to put it in a vending machine, and I'm going to take the fourth one from the top, and all of a sudden I have a car. What's your kind of industry feeling on where car sales are going and kind of what they're up to these days?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I totally agree with you on the Carvana piece. I actually went to Carvana. I actually went through their whole sales process. Is it easy? Yes. But, I totally believe that the future is frictionless. And the fact that we have got to remove, as an industry, we've got to remove the friction between the consumer and the dealer. You read all this industry news and you see, bricks and mortar is going to go away. No, it's not. Not anytime soon. Consumers, because the good dealers do a really good job of bringing their consumers in. I've got a dealer in Houston, Texas, a Cadillac store. Unbelievable what they do. I mean, they have brunch every Saturday morning for their consumers, men and women, right? Yep. They make it an experience. They celebrate the delivery of the car. And so at the end of the day, and I can really speak strongly for female consumers, we like to shop. So the fact that the automakers believe that, people don't like to shop anymore, so we're just going to, set up, off-site dealerships, do it online, that isn't true. Women love to shop for a car. Women love to shop, just not for a car. So the dealers that will win will be the ones that raise the experience. It isn't about the price. I mean, there really is, to your point earlier, there really is no voodoo left in the price of a car. You can go to the internet and you can find that out. So it isn't about who has the lowest price typically, especially on a new car. It's about who can give the best experience to that customer and the best service after the sale.
Yeah, that really does make a lot of sense, because let's face it, when you're buying what amounts to the second or third most expensive thing you're going to buy, why shouldn't it be a good experience? Why shouldn't it be a happy experience? And why should the experience end when you pick up your keys and leave your money there? It's I was asked to come out to a local Toyota dealership, small dealer. I think they own 2 or 3 stores, and they had their Toyota factory representative there. They had a couple of people from the dealership, and I said, "Why do you want me there? What am I going to offer?" And he said, "You're going to offer a third-party opinion, and there's going to be times where a customer asks us a question, and the answer is maybe an answer they don't want to hear, like, why doesn't this car have a retractable, power lift gate when the car next to it does?" And you're probably going to have an answer that our Toyota folks are just going to go, "I don't know." But they do that on a regular basis, and they invite people up, and they have a little snack, and they have a little fun, and they get to ask some questions, and they get to walk out in the shop and see what's going on out there, and they make it an experience where it's more than just a reminder to come in and get an oil change.
No, I think that's great, and I'll tell you, I mean, you are like me. You are a third party. You're an expert. And consumers trust third-party experts who are consumer advocates. And, and like you, I get brought into stores. It's that same thing. It's almost like, they have to say, well, we need you to co-sign for us, Lisa. It's like, I shouldn't have to do that, right? And it sounds like the same thing happens to you. But consumers are still, I mean, they just don't like the experience. And I think you brought up a great point. The best part of the experience should be the day that you get your new car, you get the keys to your new car, you get to drive it home. Typically, by that point, the consumer is so aggravated. They've gone through negotiations. They've gone through the finance office. They got rolled around in there a little bit. The salesperson didn't seem to be very helpful. It took them all day to buy a car, which is absolutely ridiculous. And by the time they're done, they're exhausted. The shine, you might say, is worn off the new car because, they go back to the thought of how hard it was to obtain it. Yeah. So you're right.
Yeah. So Cars Her Way is your website, carsherway.com. And the car buying book, Car Buying Her Way, where can people get that?
Well, it's available on carsherway.com. It's also available on Amazon.
Perfect. Lisa, thank you for taking time out of your Saturday morning and getting up a little earlier out in Austin than probably you planned on, but I appreciate that. Yes. Thank you. All right.
Well, thanks for having me, and good luck to all those car shoppers this weekend.
All right. Take care, Lisa. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
That was Lisa Copeland. Cars Her Way is the website, carsherway.com. And check out her book, Car Buying Her Way. You can find it on her website or Amazon or any place else. And I was looking at some of her folks that she has working with her, and I actually recognize a few names in here, too. Why don't we take a quick break? When we come back, I think we're going to be talking about the ultimate Father's Day car. Sounds a little ominous, doesn't it? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. We'll be right back.
Mustang Sally. Guess you better slow your Mustang down. Oh,
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on AM 950 WROL, the Spirit of Boston. Maybe you're listening on 100.FM, or maybe you're listening on WROLradio.com, or just find the app on iTunes and iHeart and everybody. That's where you can find us. And also,
John's showing his age.
Yeah, I know. Well, you can find old Car Doctor programs on Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, a whole bunch of places.
And your podcast.
And my podcast, Podbean, FM Player. I think it's everywhere. So anyway, so Father's Day is right around the corner. Tomorrow, I think, right, Dennis?
Tomorrow.
Yeah. You got Father's Day lined up?
Yeah, I'm going to go see that new zombie movie that's out.
Of course.
Did you see the cast?
But, maybe the thing to do is buy Dad a car for Father's Day. And with us on the phone is Matt Shimitz. He's the assistant managing editor at Cars.com. Matt, good morning and welcome to the Car Doctor program.
Good morning, John. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So, we had a little break music of, vintage Mustang music. But you kind of put together sort of the ultimate Father's Day car, I think. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we sure did. Our expert reviewers sort of put their heads together and came up with a car that offered dads no compromise between, let's say, hauling kids and hauling you know what. They chose the 2019 Mercedes AMG E63S wagon,
which I drove, I think, an AMG wagon last year, and it's ridiculous that it's a wagon. First off, that it's a 4-door sleeper wagon that goes from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds.
3.4 seconds, as a matter of fact.
It got faster. Yeah.
Yeah, it is an absurd. It's an absurd car that really shouldn't exist, but it does, and thankfully, it's got 603 horsepower, a twin turbocharged 4.0 liter V8. Made it to a really great 9-speed automatic transmission. Plus, it has 35 cubic feet of space with the second row in place, and so and if you fold that down, there's even more. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 57 cubic feet of space. So it really offers a lot of utility. But you don't have to compromise also having your dream sports car in the garage. And plus, you don't have to have a weekend car to take up more space, so that leaves more space for the lawnmower and tools and whatnot.
Well, I'm not sure how many people who would own one of these actually mow their own lawn, but maybe. Now,
we did try to keep the price, maybe manageable on some level. We didn't shoot too far for the stars, but I think this one starts at around $108,000. So that is rather spendy for most people.
Yeah, and then you add in the what is it, a $15,000 brake package?
Yeah, you can option it up. I optioned one up last night in anticipation of our conversation, and I got it up to about $146,000. So you can spend about as much as you want.
Yeah. It's always good for that. And I will say, if I was on a little bit more of a budget, I think I'd try to go find a used Cadillac CTS-V wagon with the 6-speed manual. If I was shopping around and said, well, I can't afford $150,000, I was always that to me was when that car came out, the Cadillac CTS-V with the big engine and the manual transmission. I'm like, I think Cadillac's onto something. And why I brought that up, what you said was, does it make sense to build a $150,000 3.5-second 0 to 60 station wagon? No. But I'm glad they did.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point about sort of trying to manage the cost, the regular version of the non-AMG E63 wagon is also very impressive in terms of performance. I mean, it's got a 3.0 liter V6. And I think it's roughly half the horsepower and torque. But it's certainly no slouch when it comes to performance. So that's a great compromise. But the reason we chose the AMG is that, I mean, this is something that not only has the utility of you're not stuck with a boring SUV. No offense to SUV lovers out there, I know they're very popular right now. But you can it also has the AMG styling cues. So he can sit in that sports pickup line, and people can see the AMG badge. They can see the aggressive front end. They can see the muscular rear end, and they know that this is a force to be reckoned with.
So when you're picking up your kids from daycare and you're sitting there out in front of the bus stop, you don't feel like you left your minivan home.
Exactly. And then once the kids are in the car, I mean, you'll be to grandma's house before they can say, "Are we there yet?" In fact, they'll probably be saying, "Daddy, no."
But that that's what makes the business that we're in sort of interesting. And again, something should Chrysler have ever made a Hellcat or a Demon? Does it make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. But again, glad they did it. And the same thing with this. It makes sense. It on some weird level it makes sense. And cars still are an emotional purchase, and when you can do something like that, it makes it real interesting. Cars.com, interesting website. You guys have a lot of information on there. Everything from cars for sale, but it's a great place to do research too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I was listening to your conversation before this, and I mean, the most valuable thing you can do when you're making such a big purchase, as you noted, it's the second or third biggest purchase you're going to make in your whole life for the average person. That information is out there at sites like Cars.com and in other sites. You can go and you can find out what the base price is with the destination charge. You can find out what the options are going to cost you, and what that price is before you even get to the negotiating table. And so, I mean, that's just we live in this time where all this information is at our fingertips, and you're really making a mistake if you go in there cold and just make an emotional decision, because most people end up making an emotional decision anyway, even if they are well informed.
Yeah, you're right. They go in and they are sort of in love. And because you were listening, and I asked Lisa the same question. Companies like Carvana, where they basically turn, in my opinion, a car into an appliance sort of thing. Like, okay, I'll take that one. That one's fine. No different than I'll take the 14-foot cubic foot refrigerator because it fits in the space kind of thing. Do you still find cars are, and you're in the business obviously, and you guys picked a ridiculous car for Father's Day sort of thing. So obviously you're kind of biased towards the emotional part of it. But do you see the future at some point where cars are ever going to be just an appliance?
Not in any near future. I mean, yes, in sort of that like that utopian Wall-E sort of technology future where everything looks like an Apple store. But I do think that's coming eventually. But I mean, probably not in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think not in America anyway. I think we just love our cars too much.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the idea of, taking the 300 million cars off the road that we have today and replacing them with 100, shared autonomous ride-hailing vehicles, I don't see it. I think it's, again, maybe in that, we all wear white and every store we go into looks like an Apple store. I personally don't see it. So I always like to ask people what they think, and I think we sort of agree on that.
I agree with you to an extent. I do think that day will come eventually. I think most of the technology by and large is there. It's not perfect yet, obviously, because you still will hear about the a Tesla crash where the tractor trailer pulled across the road and the autopilot could not distinguish between it and the gray sky. But the technology by and large is there for at least slower speed stop and go traffic to where the driver doesn't even need to pay attention. And in fact, the Audi A8 was kind of advertising itself ahead of time as sort of ready to go with this very hands-off sort of technology, and it was mostly regulatory issues that stood in its way. So when it did come out, that was conspicuously absent.
Yeah, no, it was. It is weirdly interesting. You're right. It is a regulatory issue. I mean, our neighboring state, New York, it's against the law not to have at least one hand on the steering wheel. So how do you have an autonomous vehicle? And in the state where I work in Rhode Island, they have an autonomous shuttle. And within the first day of the shuttle being on the road, it got pulled over by a local cop.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So yeah,
we still want people, somebody minding the store, so to speak. Yes.
Yeah. So it is kind of an interesting look on where it will be, and I think you're right. I mean, there's days I don't want to share my car with my wife, let alone 35 strangers. To me, car sharing is about the same as rental shoes in a bowling alley.
yeah, that's an apt description, I think. But that's going back to our selection for Father's Day. We selected one where he could, Dad can take the kids along with him. But I think honestly, and not to be cynical about it, but I think a lot of dads, if you gave them the choice, what they'd really like would be to get out in their car and drive by themselves. So one of our runners-up for this title of Ultimate Dadmobile was the 2019 Porsche 911 Speedster, which is totally impractical for somebody with a family. There are only 2 seats in that, so I think that would be another good choice. But that's another pie in the sky car. Another finalist was the Lincoln Navigator. To replace Dad's Odyssey, maybe give him a little luxury with it, and then the Jeep Gladiator was another one that was high on the list.
Yeah, as much as I love the Honda Odyssey's a great vehicle. When you think of the AMG wagon, when you think of the Porsche Speedster, and you think of a vehicle that's got its own vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, it's kind of a buzzkill.
Yeah, it's sort of like so when you're as you're waiting in the daycare pickup line, and you say, by the way, my car's got a built-in vacuum.
Well, those little bits of dry cereal, are not going to clean themselves up,
I suppose. If people want to read more about this or more about some of the things you and your team have put together, can they find it on Cars.com?
Absolutely. You go to cars.com/news. If you want to see the Dadmobile story, is right there at the top of the front page right now, and will be through Father's Day.
There you go. So, did you guys do a Mother's Day car?
We did do a ultimate mom mobile story. Yes, we certainly did. Not the same. It wasn't quite the same as this. I can't remember what we chose.
That's okay. So when no one will ever confuse the Mercedes AMG wagon with the Queenster family truckster. That's for sure. Or whatever.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
If you think you hate it now, wait till you drive it.
Yeah. Hey, I know that was probably the best line. Hey, Matt,
Definitely.
Thanks for taking some time out of your Saturday and joining us up here in Boston.
Anytime, John. Much appreciated,
All
sir.
right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, that was sort of fun.
Yeah.
Did you look up the AMG wagon while you were?
I've seen it before.
You have, yeah.
Isn't that the one that had the funky, like the 4 headlight things or something like that?
Like the Queenster family truckster or whatever
Something I don't know.
No. It's a Mercedes. It's a Mercedes wagon with gigantic tires on it.
Right.
It's stupid horsepower. It's like you said, almost 600 horsepower. It is a phenomenal car. And
My uncle had an AMG.
AMG. Not to be confused with AMC,
I'm
was
trying to buy movie tickets. Sorry.
Yeah.
AMG 4-wheel drive. It was a tiny car, but it had huge wheels on it, and he had that thing forever.
Yeah,
It was ugly.
Yeah. We're going to do a little trivia, by the way. I had the opportunity this week to drive for a very limited period of time 2 different Rolls-Royce cars.
What?
Yeah. The Phantom.
Hey, Dennis, I got a Phantom. You want to ride?
Hey, Dennis, I got a Phantom and I decided not to take it today. I don't have a Phantom, by the way. But it's a lovely car. It's about as easy to drive as that dump truck that's sitting out in the parking lot. It feels gigantic.
As it should.
As it should. I drove it, and I also did the Grey Poupon back seat, kind of relaxed in the back seat, and it has some. It is probably the nicest riding car that I've ever driven.
Absolutely.
But again, it was also $600,000.
As it should be.
As it should be. If I add up everything I own together, I probably still couldn't buy one. But I also drove.
I don't know about that, but that's okay.
I also drove the Rolls-Royce Cullinan, which is their SUV sort of thing.
Oh,
yeah,
that's new, right?
It's new. It starts off at $325,000.
Oh, that all?
That's all. The one I drove was $410,000.
Oh my God!
So, some of the interesting options were, I don't know what the bass stereo sounds like, but the bespoke stereo system was $10,000. So $10,000 additional over what was probably there that cost $10,000 to start off with. So the rear center console. So instead of having a bench across the back, it just has 2 seats. But the center console has a lot of electronics and it's roomy. The center console was $15,000.
It's a Rolls Royce. What do you
It's a
expect?
Rolls-Royce, yeah.
It's all handmade, isn't it? Still.
Yes.
See?
In fact, and I assume it's all of them, but
No 2 are exactly alike.
well, for instance, the person who sews the seats is the same person from start to finish on the car.
Yes.
So if typically her, but it's not always a her, their stitching technique could be different than someone else's.
Exactly.
It's going to be the same throughout. The wood interior, it's kind of funny. The Cullinan wood interior is so nice, it looks like plastic. It's so shiny. I mean, you literally can see yourself in it. Where the Phantom wood looked more like wood. But you look at it, and the grain patterns on like the front of this door match the grain. So it's one piece of wood that they matched all the grain together, so it's always the same.
As it should be.
As
I'm sorry, these are ultra luxury cars. They should be perfect.
the cows that the leather comes from only come from high altitudes where they don't get stung by bees, because you don't want leather with a spot in it. So they only get high.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, but they only get cows from
The Himalayas?
I don't know, someplace high up where there's no bugs, and of course there's no fences or anything, because you don't want
Free range.
Yeah, free
Free range for your car.
Yeah, yeah. So the convertible, and I didn't drive one, has a piece of wood that when the top goes down, it covers over where the top fits. And it's a special kind of wood that comes from someplace in Africa.
Oh, and they have to like truck it up a river and all this
Well,
stuff.
they were floating it up a river, but the Rolls-Royce people didn't like
the water stains.
the water stains, so they paid somebody to carry it on the backs of elephants. It is a completely different.
That's just stupid money.
Yeah,
I mean, if you could buy that car,
yeah.
you have stupid money.
And a fair amount of them are leased. People actually do. My question was
Leased? What's your lease price? Like $10,000 a month?
Yeah. In some cases, in the Cullinan, it's probably only 5,000.
Only $5,000.
Like Lisa Copeland said, it's not just the car; it's the experience.
This I get.
Yeah, yeah.
And I want, ultimately, I would love to get a have enough money to say I can buy a Rolls Royce. I don't want no Bentley. I don't want no high-end Mercedes. I want a Rolls Royce. That Rolls Royce is awesome. The emblem, the front end, everything about a Rolls, I love them. Even their little leaks from the old days.
From the old days, it was. I don't think I drove one as much as I drove the one on Tuesday night.
And I did not get around.
And I did not call you. It was down in Middleborough.
I was available.
Yeah. It was at our New England Motor Press meeting.
You still could have said, hey, Middleborough's not that far. Hey, Dennis.
Hey, you going out for ribs on Tuesday night? You're not that far away. Yeah. And it's a very nice car. The other thing is that there are a certain amount of people that literally come in with a bag of cash and just pay for it. You know that it's just it's a car they just pay for, and because they have plenty of money. I asked it was actually the president of Rolls-Royce was visiting with his PR guy, Jerry Spahn, good guy. Known Jerry Spahn for a lot of years. He mentioned that we have both gotten grayer and older. Which is in fact true. We both have got grayer and older. But the president of Rolls-Royce is like 40 years old. But we were talking with him, and I said, what's the average income of a Rolls-Royce buyer?
Go to Saudi Arabia.
20 to 40 million a year.
Go to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, yeah. So So there is and the level of detail inside the car
It's amazing.
is the car the Cullinan is a 563 horsepower big SUV with kind of fixed windows so there's windows that go down, but there's windows that don't go down, because when you're at the hotel and someone's unloading your ski equipment, you don't want to get windy, you don't want snow to blow in on you, so you get stuff out of the back without snow getting on you from the hatch being open, kind of thing. It's an interesting car, and they said that probably 50% of the people that buy the Cullinan, the SUV, came from someplace else, high-end Range Rovers, Mercedes G-Wagons, stuff like that, and they already have one Rolls-Royce, and they like it so much they buy another. The other thing they said was people that buy Rolls-Royces, it's obviously not their only car, like the Dadmobile, like the Mercedes AMG, where it could substitute for a sports car and a SUV and something else. The Rolls-Royce buyer has 3 or 4 or 5 cars in their garage. And they said pretty typical is maybe in 2 or 3 years, somebody goes to trade in their Phantom back into the dealership for a new one. And it might only have a couple thousand miles on it. They don't really drive them that much.
No.
The one question I forgot to ask, an Audi R8 just went by. That's a kind of Audi supercar. The one question I didn't ask is drive versus driven. How many people buy a Rolls-Royce just to be chauffeured? I didn't ever ask the question. I forgot. But I wouldn't think...
Well, the Phantom, I think, would be higher than...
Probably. Yeah, probably. And I know for a fact, depends where you live. If you lived in the New York, Connecticut area, you're probably driven. California has a different feel on those kind of things, and there's less chauffeur-driven vehicles in California than there is in, say, New York, for instance, because it's just an impression of kind of different things. So the number one market in the United States for Rolls-Royce, Miami.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I was thinking California, but
no.
Yeah.
When you think about it, when you really think about it, Miami does not surprise me.
Yeah. But anyway, our trivia question. This was a long lead up to trivia.
Oh boy.
The 2019 Rolls-Royce Cullinan. The name Cullinan, where does it come from? And feel free to use the power of the internet to find that out.
Cheaters.
Yeah, I know. Well, but the name Cullinan, where does it come from? If you know the answer to that, is this actually Jeopardy music?
Sure.
Yeah.
I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah. So I was just thinking the guy who won like
Yep.
$2.5 million.
Still can't afford the...
Yeah. He still doesn't make enough money. But where did the name Cullinan come from? If you know the answer to that, give us a call at 617-770-3030, 617-770-3030. Same rules apply if you've won lately. Leave it for someone else. I only learned this the other day when I drove the Cullinan. Found out. So I asked, what's a Cullinan? And first I thought it was Culligan, which is a water filter, which is not that. But what is a Cullinan? If you know the answer, 617-770-3030, 617-770-3030. You've probably been hearing on the radio we're partnering with Save the Children and Make a Difference for Children. While it might be hard to imagine, a $60 gift to Save the Children today can provide enough emergency food and medicine to save a child suffering from acute malnutrition. Their very life and future are at risk. With just a little help from you, Save the Children can do exactly that. Save children in 120 countries around the world and right here at home. But it can't happen without you. And when you give today, your gift is doubled. Make a difference for a child in need today. So go to SaveTheChildren.com. You can find out more information about it. Our phone number again, 617-770-3030, 617-770-3030 is our number. If you have a car question or you want to play trivia or whatever's on your mind, you can do that. I got a couple of comments. I talked about this last week, and I stumbled all over the name of it. A new product, it's called Touchless Sealant, and it's from a company called 303. I've used some of their products before. They make everything from a barbecue grill cleaner to all kinds of other interesting stuff. But this Touchless Sealant is kind of an alternative to waxing. Something we found out Dennis has never done in his life is wax the car.
Not a little bit. Not even a tiny little bit.
Can you imagine if you had a Rolls Royce?
I'd have enough to pay someone that wouldn't have to do it.
But this is an interesting product. You put it, you wash the car, and the first time I did it, I kind of made the mistake. I washed the car and I dried it, but then you're supposed to actually put it on a wet car, and I think it actually worked better when I did it the first time because I just misted the car again. I didn't have it wet, and then you spray the stuff on, and you wash it right off. You spray it on, wash it off, and then you wipe it all down. And it uses some kind of weird technology that bonds to the paint and makes the water bead. And I did the black car a couple weeks ago, still beading water, looks pretty good. And then what was nice is when I came home one day and it was covered with pollen, just hit it with the hose, washed it right off, and it actually came off, and it worked pretty nice. I did the other car last weekend because it was covered with pollen. Washed it all off, wiped it down, sprayed it, and again, it's pretty easy stuff to use. It's there's not much. It's you have a feeling it's like something's wrong. You spray it on and then rinse it with water, and it kind of beads when you spray it on, and then you wipe the car all down afterwards with a nice microfiber cloth, and it came out really nice. So it's called 303 Touchless Sealant, and it comes in like a 32-ounce container, and I think maybe like 16-ounce one too. It's not very expensive. It's in the $16, $17 to $25 container, but makes cleaning your car look nice and easy, and makes the car look nice, and I thought it was pretty good. So again, it's 303 Touchless Sealant, kind of a nice alternative to real wax, real hard wax, the kind of stuff that Dennis doesn't want to do. You might actually do this.
Maybe.
Spray on, spray off.
Maybe. Is it like a bottle spray, or is it you hook it up to your hose and you spray it on?
No, you have to use it. You have to pull a trigger.
Yeah, no.
No, too much work?
Too much work. Already done.
Woo. All right, let's talk to Rick in Boston's been there for a long time. Let's talk to Rick. Rick?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, it's me. And that little thing you had about the Rolls Royce was quite interesting.
About where they get their cows?
The cows and the wood and all that. Yeah. And
yeah.
But here's my suggestion for Father's Day for motorcycles.
Okay.
If you're a young guy, you're going to want like a sport bike or a dual sport bike.
Mm-hmm.
And that, because you want to go fast and you'll whip around the corners and stuff like that. And then as you get a little older, then go to a cruiser and that, or maybe even a bagger. And then as you get old and that, go to a trike or one with a sidecar.
Mm. Have you ever driven one of these 3-wheel motorcycles, whether they're the 2 wheels in the front and the one in the back, or the 2 wheels in the back and the one in the front? Have you ever driven one of those?
No, actually, a couple of weeks ago I had a chance to ride in one of them, and I was gonna actually drive it, but then something came up and I had and I wasn't able to in that.
Yeah, I have never. I've ridden a motorcycle. It was kind of a BMW copy of like a World War II vintage motorcycle with a sidecar, and that was just weird. I actually thought it felt dangerous taking a right turn because it didn't flex. It didn't lean when you went to take a turn. It just felt kind of weird to me. But I haven't tried one of the other ones made by the jet ski companies or whoever they're made by.
Well, you might find this interesting. The Euro motorcycle.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
It has a sidecar, and depending on the model you get, both rear wheels are drive wheels.
Yeah, that's what this one actually, you could drive it in the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the modern that it's got two wheels in the back that are drive wheels, and that was actually the one I was in, and I was going to drive it next to a little obstacle course to see how it handles in that. But then all of a sudden a bunch of my friends showed up, and I didn't get a chance. They wanted to do it.
So what age group are you in with the Indian? So you're not quite at the 3-wheel stage yet.
I'm about ready to go to the 3-wheel stage in that, and it might have its advantage because my wife has had problems getting on back of the Indian in that.
Okay.
So having a sidecar might work well for her.
There you go. Hey, Rick, always good to hear from you. And
grocery store and get groceries.
Yeah, and happy Father's Day, Rick.
Okay, same to you, John.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. Let's go talk to John Diamond. I haven't heard John Diamond's voice in ages. Mr. Diamond? Hello, John. Where are you? He's there. Huh. Oh, well.
I have him up.
I believe you.
His phone little icon is showing.
Phone thing over there is up. All right. Okay. Well,
I'm going to put him back on hold.
Put him back on hold. Let's go play trivia then. Let's talk to Peter in Salem. Peter.
Hi, John. How are you?
Good. So did they ever have an Edsel Cullinan?
Yes.
They did?
Yes. It was, no, they didn't have a model like that. It was owned by the Culligan Water Company.
Yeah. Well, Culligan's different than Cullinan.
Culligan.
Yeah.
But it was a special order car, and it was light blue like water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's a Rolls Royce Cullinan?
Cullinan. I'm going to say it's named after a small town in the UK.
Well, that'd be a great answer, but it's wrong.
Oh my God, John! The
but that was a good answer. That was a well-crafted, put-together answer.
Well, I'm thinking of the English and the English countryside.
Yeah, no, that was well thought through.
Probably someone who designed it or something.
Well, my favorite story about funny names like that is Jordan's Furniture. Jordan's Furniture years ago used to have the Anthony Moretti Italian leather collection. Do you remember the commercials for that?
Sure, yes.
Well, and it made it sound like, Anthony Moretti, was this Italian furniture designer, and they...
I think I just dropped him by accident.
And they send you to phone school. And the Anthony Moretti Italian... Do you know the story about Anthony Moretti? Do you remember the Jordan Furniture Anthony Moretti Italian leather collection?
It wasn't real, right?
Tony Moretti's their accountant.
Yes.
Yeah. It had nothing.
It was
but
like the car, whatever that leather, Corinthian, whatever that leather was.
Yeah, Corinthian wasn't real either. So, but yeah. So let's go to. I think we got Mike in Bridgewater that wants to play trivia. Michael.
Yes. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
John, I'm good, sir. Thank you. If you had talked to John Diamond, I think it would have been ironic.
It would have been.
Yeah, I thought, geez, John, you're calling and you get it, so that's good. All right, so I did, as Dennis said, I cheated. So
it's cheating.
Well, okay, so you're calling before Mr. Edsel, man. I like to think of him. Anyways, it's the town in South Africa that had the largest diamond that was ever found, rough cut diamond. So. Hence, I guess Rolls-Royce searched for that. When they were looking for the wood, they found the name, and that kind of maybe a whole synergy thing happened. So
apparently it's the largest gem quality rough diamond ever found, weighing I don't know, lots and lots of carats, I guess. So it looks it's like the size of a tangerine. It's a pretty big.
Really?
Yeah, it's a pretty big chunk of diamond.
I actually knew the answer to this one.
Who did?
Me.
You did?
I actually did.
How did you know the answer?
Because I know that diamond.
Really?
Because of my friend who worked in the jewelry store.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Okay.
I'll split, Dennis. I'll split it with you, whatever we get.
No,
split. You can't split. You can't split the AAA membership, but you can split the diamond if you come across it. So.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Dennis, you lose.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, stay right there. Dennis will get your mailing address down, and we'll send you out a AAA membership. And if you're already a member, use it for renewal, or give it to a friend or relative, or do something nice with it, and we'll get that out to you in the mail sometime this week.
John, I really appreciate it so much.
Thing.
Enjoy the show, and I wish you and your family a happy Father's Day tomorrow. Thank you
very much. All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye now. All right. Dennis will do that.
John is supposedly on line one right now.
Is John Diamond back? Let's see if he's back. John Diamond, is that you?
Yes, I am back.
Hey, look at that. Haven't heard from you in a while. You doing okay these days?
Not too bad for an old guy. I couldn't afford the Rolls-Royce leather, so I have to go down to the mall and get it from the local fabric store.
No, there you go. There you go. And speaking of old cars, I heard that interior manufacturer, where were they? Up in Marblehead or somewhere up that way? Something in Bonnie. They're
LeBaron
Bonnie. They're going out of business.
Yeah, that because a lot of the earlier cars aren't being fixed up anymore.
That's right. Yeah. So you still involved with the show coming up in a couple weeks?
48th show.
48th show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
we're still perking along. We have big change in administration to try to dollar up a little bit, and I think it'll be good.
Yeah, well, it's always a good show, I think, no matter what. But anything special going on this year that you've heard about up at the show?
Not really. We have the usual things which are still interesting: the flea market, the car corral, 50-50 drawing, and we have enough interest to keep people coming in.
Yep.
We free print transportation from the parking lot, and we try to think of everything. We keep a lid on the food so it's not outrageously priced, and we're expecting you as usual.
And you still got Bruce doing the music?
Yes, that's right, Bruce Palmer.
Yeah. Well, I heard from a friend of his big development in his life in the last year. He put a lift at his house.
I'll tell you, once you get a little older, it's hard to bend over. A lift is a great asset.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to hear from you, John. How many cars in your car collection? Do you know?
I've cut mine way down to like 3 or 4.
Oh, okay.
You just can't. It's tough enough managing one, never mind 2 or 3.
Because you had a bunch. You had a bunch for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a bunch, but I tell you, when you don't use them, they fall off. You step on the brake pedal and it's gone.
Yeah.
So you got to start all over.
Okay, give us a little detail. What day is the show?
It's July 14th at the Endicott Estate in Dedham.
Yeah, and
there are big signs on 128.
Yep. And if people want to go to the show, it's open to the public around 9 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Yep. And if you want to bring a car in and you want to be judged, you need to get a hold of the club, right?
Well, anybody can bring a car in to be judged as long as it's before 10 o'clock. But your best bet is to pre-register, and you fly right in rather than having to wait in a long line.
Okay. And you can get in at 10, but a lot of people get there real early, though, right?
They're there before we're even set up.
Yeah.
They're there at 5, 6 o'clock.
Hey, John.
Yeah. So,
John, can you turn your radio down a little bit?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. I should be a professional by now.
That's all right. That was something. I thought it was just a bad phone, but Dennis noticed what it really was. So.
Well, I promise never to do it again.
It's all good. Don't worry about it.
There you go. Hey, and so the show is as always is the 48th show. This has to be one of the longest continuously running car shows around, isn't it?
Pretty much so. It's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
There are a lot of big shows, but this one seems to draw the people.
Yeah, and it is, and it's a great setting. And I was at the Endicott Estate talking to a retired men's club back, I don't know, it must have been after the first year or something. And every time I go in there now, the place looks, for people who haven't been there in a while, they keep dressing up the inside of it a little bit, refinishing a little bit more wood, and it's quite the beautiful building inside.
Well, we donate a portion of our take-ins to for the estate because there's always the rumor about tearing it down.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much gone by now.
I would have to say, and people, and the estate gets used for a lot of different things, but in my opinion, the car show's the best thing it gets used for. So
it is, but they do weddings and receptions and everything there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful setting and easy to get to right off the highway. Like you said, just follow the signs right from the highway. It'll get you right there. drive right by it and drive down the street to where the parking area is, take the little free shuttle bus that comes back up to it, or it's, I don't know, it's maybe, what, a 10-minute walk if you were walking. So,
at the most. I believe it's exit 14 on 128. It's not hard to find.
No, it's not hard to find at all, and again, it's always a nice setting, and even though I have not been there in years, the few years that I have gone off and on to the show, it's always a good time with a great mix of cars. And for somebody who's considering getting into the old car hobby, no better way to do that than talk to people that have the car you're interested in and maybe made a few mistakes along the way, right?
Well, we have at least 200 car corral, so there's somebody to talk to that'll sell them on everything, and they just have to make the pick.
Yeah. But if you're, say you're interested in buying, I don't know, whatever the hot car is this year, a 61 Chevy or something, and you find one or two, not even one for sale, but one or two that are just on display, and you go over and you say, hey, I'm interested in a car like this. Can you tell me some things to look for or some things to stay away from? People are always pretty helpful in sharing and say, oh, you know what, watch out because the rear frame rail's rot out, or this rusts away, or watch out if you're trying to find one that you think you think it's going to be the stock engine in it. Watch out, a lot of people swap this for that, or here's what to look for. People are always pretty helpful as far as trying to help people.
It seems like you're very knowledgeable yourself. I hate to be selling you a car.
Well, we always tell people that try to be as informed as you can, and when it comes down to being informed about a car, and whether it's especially a hobby car like that, why not get informed as much as you can, and don't make the mistake of buying a car that's in a whole bunch of boxes, because that guy didn't put it together, and you probably won't either, right?
Oh, you're right. But anybody can come to a Bay State meeting, which is the third Thursday of the month, and discuss what they're interested in with the club members, and they'll get plenty of response.
I bet they will. Hey, John, thanks for letting us know about the show, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it a little bit between now and then, because I like that show, because I want to say it's one of the first shows I was ever invited to. And so it always has a little spot in my heart for that show.
Well, thank you. Now we're starting to get mad because you don't show up.
Oh yeah, well, I'll be there. I'll be there on the 14th.
Okay.
All right. Take care, John.
I look forward to it. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
617-770-3030, 617-770-3030. I think we need to take another break. Why don't we do that? If you would like to join us, we still have about 15 minutes left of the program. 617-770-3030, 617-770-3030 is the phone number. Lines are open right now. Give us a call. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on AM 950 WROL, the Spirit of Boston. Let's go to Richard in Peabody. Richard, is that you?
Hello.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
I heard you had Larry Rubenstein on a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I did. Yes.
Yeah, he's a really nice, good mechanic, nice guy, and he speaks highly of you.
Well, then I'd question him then, because,
No, I've been going to him for over 20 years. He's a super guy.
Oh, good. Okay.
A couple of things. I had an 05 Buick LaCrosse, and it's sporadic. Every once in a while, I start the car up, and I get my ABS light, my brake light, and my traction control light go on. Run the car, shut it off, goes back on again. And then for days it won't go on, and then for days it'll come on. And so I don't know. Could it be a computer problem?
What kind of car is it again?
An 05 LaCrosse.
Yeah, no, it's what's happening is it's one of the wheel sensors is acting up. And what happens is when one of the wheel sensors acts up, it wants to shut down everything else. So the traction control, the ABS, and stability control all work off ABS wheel sensors. So what happens when one of them goes bad, it shuts down the anti-lock brake system, and that in turn causes all of those weird things to happen. So more than likely, it is the left front wheel sensor. Because, and I have no idea why, but 99% of the time when it's a GM car, it's a left front ABS sensor and it's a broken wire. And you put a new wheel sensor in, and it comes with the new little wire harness, and that usually takes care of it all.
Oh, well, it's been done before. So.
Yep. Yeah. So well, what happens is the wire stretches, and then it breaks. So I'd go see Larry, have him take a look at it. But chances are, what they'll find. The other thing that can sometimes happen, but if you've had it done before, is rust will build up. The sensor itself looks like a gear. So envision something that looks like a gear with a bunch of teeth around the outside of it. And if rust starts to build up inside there or near the sensor, it kind of confuses it, and it gets it all crazy, and it doesn't work right. So the last thing I would think of would be a problem with the computer. What I would look more at is some sort of ABS wheel sensor sort of problem.
All right, great. One other thing, where it's an 05, I'm going to start thinking of getting a car, and I've been shopping around. What do you think of the 16 LaCrosse?
There's not a lot of, there's probably not a huge difference between your Buick and that Buick, honestly. So, I mean, they're fine. I think there's good and bad in every car, but the V6 engine's been pretty solid, and it tends to work out pretty well. So, yeah.
Yeah, this has been an excellent car for me.
Yep. No, I would go look at it and see what you think. And but even though it's only a couple years old, 16 sounds like a new car to me. I would still bring it up to Larry or some a good shop you trust, and have them do kind of a once through and make sure everything looks the way it's supposed to look on it.
Any place where I can look at cars. I went on to your site, AAA.
Yep.
But the Buick I was looking at was in Texas. So I don't think
you have to narrow the choices down. But yeah, you can. I'm a big fan of Car Gurus.
Car Gurus.
And IC Cars. They're both Massachusetts companies. And I have to give Matt.
It's ISEE, not just IC.
Yeah, so it's the letter I, SEE cars.com. And and only and we have to give Matt credit, who was on the show earlier today. Go to cars.com too. But just put in the filters. You're looking for Buick, and just search within 100 miles of your house.
Yeah. All right, great. Have a happy Father's Day.
You as well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Somebody called in and wanted to know about the Bay State Antique Auto Club.
Did
you take care of it all?
On the website, it says every second Thursday, even though John said third, and it's at 7:30 p.m.
7:30 p.m. at the Endicott Estate in the main ballroom.
Yes, and there's a number. You can go to just Google Bay State.
Yeah, it's bsaac.com.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, let's go down to where my sister lives in Georgia. Chuck.
Yes.
How are you?
Good. Hi, John. How are you?
If you see my sister in Georgia, tell her it was her birthday yesterday, so wish her a happy birthday.
I will. Whereabouts is she from, do you know?
She lives outside of Conyers.
Oh, yeah. I live on the other end. I live near Savannah.
Yeah. Well, you never know. You might, she might go there she might go to Savannah for her birthday.
Because Georgia isn't a big state or anything. It's not like Massachusetts.
Anyway.
Well, But anyway, yes, I was at my local oil change place, and I've got a 2014 Edge, and they do other tests, and the guy walks in with a slip of paper to the counter girl, and the counter girl tells me I need a battery, and the slip of paper says that I have a 550 crank hour battery, and I guess he put a load on it. I don't know. You can tell me. And it shows 350 cranking amps. And they said, well, you need a battery. So I bought an Exide battery from them for $110. How do they do that test? And was it an accurate test?
Well, they do it in one or two different ways. It used to be, we'll go way back in time. It used to be that battery testers were nothing more than it looked like a couple of jumper cables and an electric coil, and they push a button and it would put about a 100 amp load on the battery, and they'd watch a gauge, and if they saw the gauge drop down quick, it would usually be an indication that there was a bad cell in the battery, or the battery just wasn't doing its job anymore. And it was a little bit vague. It was like green was good, yellow was so-so, and red was bad. Or else what would happen is if it was a battery that you could pop the caps off of, you do the same test and you look for bubbles in the cells, and that would tell you the cell was on its way out. Then they went to a more sophisticated test that used something called a carbon pile tester, which put a serious load on the battery. It would vary. That gave you pretty good results, and that let you know what was really happening. And then they got more computerized and still put a load on the battery. And then lately, they've been using a test that's that puts no load on the battery at all, but it measures the battery. And at AAA, where I work, we're using a new battery testing tool, and it works so good and so accurately, it scares me how simple it is. You hook it up, and you actually connect it to a cell phone or a tablet, and you press a button on a tablet, it does something, but you put in what the battery's rated at. So you put in that the battery's rated at 550 cold cranking amps, and it does some magic, calculates what's out, and then it says, this battery is 250 amps, suggesting to replace it. 350 amps, battery's marginal, could give you trouble in the future. So in a hot weather state like Georgia, here up in the Northeast, batteries last 5-6 years, sometimes 7. In hot weather states, they last 2, 3, 4 years. So you're probably at the point where it wouldn't surprise me that, in fact, your battery, 300 cold cranking amps is not terrible. And you probably, if you lived up here in the Northeast, I'd say to you, Chuck, what I would do is when winter rolls around, I'd think about replacing the battery. But since your winter's only about 40 degrees, it's more as the hot weather's coming, that's when your battery's going to fail. So, so I think, the accuracy of the test, especially with some of this new equipment, is amazing how good it is. So
within the 200 cold cranking amps, I was destined for a failure.
Oh yeah. You were at the point where. You can't go out and buy a battery with that low of cranking amps unless it was going in a lawn tractor or motorcycle or something. So yeah, it's yeah. So you're your battery had about 50 or 60% of the capacity that it had when it was new. So not a half bad idea to replace it. So
all right, good.
Okay.
Well, show was very informative, and I appreciate you every week.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for listening, and tell all your friends down in Georgia to listen, too.
I will.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye, Chuck.
John. Bye.
Hey, Sully's over there just kind of hanging out, looking at, what was it, birthday card? What is that?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Got a birthday card.
You got a birthday card?
Last Monday was my birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Emerald Bill sent a nice card.
Was there money in it? Because that would be special. That'd be special if you opened it up and there was like a $5 bill in there.
Bill's on hard times, obviously. Thanks, Bill, though. That's really sweet. So he wrote a little note about my dad. He says, please tell your dad that the radio thing much more than worked out. Did I ever tell you the story? My dad said that radio thing's never going to work.
It's never going to work out, yeah.
So I was with him a little while ago. I said, Dad, it's been on the air for like 40-some years. I guess the radio thing kind of worked out anyway.
Yeah, well, that's what Howard Stern's father told him, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that radio thing's never going to work out.
Yeah. Well, Howard's doing a little better than I am, but yeah.
Wait, you don't get $500 million a year like he does?
I do not.
No?
But I don't have to work as hard as he does either.
He works 3 days a week.
I work 3 hours a week.
Yeah, but you also have another job.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
So.
Yep. What's up?
Just day before Father's Day, I want to wish everybody out there a happy Father's Day. And
Did you go through the litany of fathers, grandfathers, fathers-in-law?
Fathers-in-law, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, fathers-to-be.
Fathers-to-be, yep.
Yeah, all that stuff. So, and hopefully all the dads out there get to enjoy their day with their families,
it's gonna rain, I think.
or else
isn't it going to rain tomorrow?
Whatever the right thing to do for Father's Day, either enjoy your day with your family or get left alone, whichever
exactly
people want to do.
So I've scoured the archives to see how many Father's songs there are. Of course, there are like
there's one, right?
2 million Mother's songs.
Isn't there just like one Father's Day song?
Let's put it this way: Dad got kind of left behind. I think. But we'll find a few.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Hey, the piano guy is. I hear him. There he is. So I want to wish everybody fathers to be. Current fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, great-uncles, I don't know, anybody who could possibly somehow influence a child, happy Father's Day to them.
Even if your father told you your career wasn't going to work out at some point.
Yeah, even the father who said, maybe you should get your truck driver's license.
Yeah, if the word ne'er-do-well ever came out in a conversation.
Yeah.
even those dads.
Even those dads, absolutely. Until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.
The memories of my hometown